So the Chicago Sky made an interesting trade, probably a shocking trade to some people, especially after the huge win before going into the break against the Las Vegas Aces, where Kennedy Carter went off. But they traded Marina Mabrey, who was an integral part of this team. Some people are saying that she's their only 3-point shooter, even though her shooting splits are down this year. But they got back a 2025 first round pick, a first round pick swap, or should I say a pick swap in 2026. And then you got Rachel Bonham and Mariah Jefferson. Now, these two players, in my opinion, bring more depth to this team. I know that Jefferson has a history of injuries, but when she's on the court, she is a solid player. She's been coming off the bench. Unfortunately, I think she had an ankle surgery this season. So there are question marks on that move. But on the other side of things, you got Bonham, who just set a record for most 3-pointers made for the Connecticut Suns, where she hit 8 in a game, and she shoots it from 40%. So when I'm looking at this move, some people are saying, are the Sky going to tank mode? Possibly, because they might be looking at the situation going, okay, we're 10 and 14, we're the eighth seed. We know we're not a contender yet, and we want to get draft capital. So I see the logic behind that. Or maybe they're still going to fight for a playoff spot. I still think they're talented enough because you still got Kennedy Carter, you still got Angel Reese, and you still brought in a 3-point specialist. And if Jefferson is healthy enough down the stretch, well, they got a shot. Now, I know their schedule is a lot tougher going into the second half of the season, but I look at this as a win-win for the Sky. And the reason why I see it as a W is because you get draft capital. And if you're looking to add some more pieces and get younger, then it makes sense to move on from Mabry. And if Jefferson stays healthy or she gives you more minutes and she's able to be on the court more, that's a win as well. We just talked about how Benham is shooting 40% from three and on 3.2 attempts. So if she can give you that same production where she's getting 9 to 12 points off the bench, then again, that helps out the Chicago Sky. When you're trying to rebuild a team, you're looking for cornerstone pieces. You have Kennedy Carter, Angel Reese, and I think at the same time, you're looking towards the future for draft capital. Now, the 2025 pick obviously might not be that good because the Connecticut Sun is going to make a deep playoff run. But the following year, they might not be as good anymore because they have a lot of veterans and an older roster. So if they aren't as good in 2026, well, guess what? They have their pick swap. Also, next year's pick, maybe they can move up in the draft by like 5 spots to get their player that they want. So there's a lot of positives that could come out of this trade. I know some people are thinking, well, Mabry is her second best scorer. Well, she's also a vet as well. When you're looking at this team, you definitely want to get some youth so you can build around Angel Reese and Kennedy Carter. Kennedy Carter is 25 years old and Angel Reese is 22, and they got a lot of vets on this team. So the Sky's looking at this situation going, okay, we're not contenders yet, and we need draft capital. So we need to go out and draft and scout and bring young talent in to build around these two women. So I get the logic of what the Sky is trying to do here, and they might be going into tank mode for next season so they can get a higher draft pick. I don't know, but you got to start somewhere. If you don't see any potential where this core is going to end up being a contender, then you move off of them. I know Jefferson and Banham are older. They're also vets as well. I think Banham is 30 years old and Jefferson is 31 years old. So they are older. And Jefferson, we already talked about the injury history. But again, they're looking at it from the perspective of, okay, we want to rebuild and we got to start somewhere. And it might take us 2 or 3 years to build a championship level team. So you need draft picks for that. And you need some flexibility here. And again, if they end up getting really good players in the draft, then this trade looks phenomenal for them. Right now, it doesn't look as good because we know that the draft pick next year from the Sun isn't going to be that strong. And also, we don't know what 2026 is going to look like. But I can't blame them for moving on from Mabry. And if Jefferson stays healthy, obviously that's a big if. But if she can provide a spark off the bench, then maybe you trade her for some more draft picks. So I could see that angle. Also, if Banham is giving you some good minutes as well off the bench, and let's say there's a contender or someone that's trying to be a contender and needs an extra piece, well, you can say, okay, we have these 2 pieces for you, but we want some draft capital. So I can see what the Sky is trying to do here by just building for the future because they recognize we got vets and we got an older roster, and it's probably not a contending team yet. Some will probably argue, well, the playoffs is going to help them. Sure, it might help them, but are they contenders yet? Are they going to be a top team for next season if they get that experience? We don't know that right now. You just have to look at Kennedy Carter and Angel Reese as your duo and go, okay, we know Kennedy is 25, Angel is 22. We got to look at the next 2 to 3 years as a rebuild, and you got to be honest with yourself. And that's fine. What that does for the Sky is you build chemistry for Carter and Reese to get better together. Reese can develop her offensive game, and Carter is still around to help her get better as well. And by the time Carter has hit her prime and injuries around 24, 25 years old, and you've drafted a few women, and you've made some other trades for draft capital, and now you're developing some other young talent around Carter and Reese, all of a sudden, in 4 years, they're a contender. And now we're realizing, okay, this makes sense for this guy. Now, if they were higher as a team where they were a fourth seed, then you don't make this move. But when you're the eighth seed and you're recognized, okay, we're probably gonna get swept in the first round. I still think the Sky have a good chance of making the playoffs. I know their schedule is tough, but they still have Reese and Kenny Carter. And I think Banham can shoot the ball, so that's gonna help them as well. So they're looking at it as a win-win situation. If we make the playoffs, get the experience, great. If we don't, we still got their draft pick. Obviously, I don't think they have their draft pick next year, so that does hurt a little bit. So this might backfire. I can see that argument as well. But you got to start somewhere. If you don't see this team again being a contender in the next, year or 2 years, then you might want to start looking at some draft capital and moving off some players. And again, there are some sources out there that said Marina Mabrey requested this trade. So if Banhan is giving you some good minutes, if Jefferson is giving you some good minutes, you can go into the offseason, trade them as well for some more draft capital. And then all of a sudden, you're bringing some young talent. You develop around Carter and Reese. And then 2 or 3 years from now, you've got a contender again. It doesn't look like a popular move at the moment, but I can see what the Sky is trying to do here. We just got to see how it all plays out before we come to a conclusion that this was a bad trade. It could either be really good or it could backfire. We'll just have to see what the Sky is going to do next, because I'm sure there's more moves coming where they're looking to get some more draft capital so they can build around Carter and Reese. Hope you guys enjoyed this video today. I'd love to hear your thoughts on Mabrey getting traded. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.